relationship with them, you're less likely to be afraid of it, right? Like, I hate that part of myself. I've even heard myself say that. I hate that part of myself, huh? Can anybody relate to that? And what I'm hearing you say is you're inviting us to tolerate it at minimum. And look, and it sort of takes the juice out of it, the charge out of it, and then we can heal, feel, and heal it, and then include it. What voice in all of those, and don't get me wrong, there are folks out there listening who need the support of medication. Many of us have over the years, and there's no shame in that, and we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is the sort of the mainstream person who's, got some parts and they're a little disenfranchised, but are trying to collect them all up. What voice are we in search of? The one that we want to captain the ship of who we are.
Right. It's the realistic agent.
Love that. Writing it down. The realistic agent.
And that one is tolerant and calm and accepting of the extremes. The idealizations, the grandiose expectations, the guy you're talking about. And also tolerant of the feelings of inferiority and incompetence and degradation. And is examining those things. The first voice you were mentioning is a critical voice. Like, I hate that part of myself. Or the voice is usually, don't even think about it. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you can't tolerate thinking about it, then don't even think about it. It's a good idea.
Yeah. Right.
But the point is that if you learn some of the earlier lessons in the book, you can think about it because you can also put it out of mind. If you can put it out of mind, you can put it in mind.
Right. And this, if it sounds complicated, really, in the book it's laid out so well. I know sometimes processing can feel big and scary a little bit. I know it can for me. Dr. Horowitz, you've done an amazing job at laying this out in a way that's inviting. It's straightforward. There's a lot of stories from your clients and even your own personal life that really invite you. The invitation is a warm one. And the freedom that you offer us, right, is to be able to access our happiness. So having said that, let's move on, because I could spend the whole show on this one point, because I think it's wildly entertaining, all of our parts. Most important point I think about it, for the sake of this conversation, is to find our healthiest ego self, in one respect, that might be a way to look at it, or our authentic self, and really build that. And many of us kind of waffle back and forth between a few characters, if you want to call them that, okay? But he talks about that, you talk about that in the book. You also talk about intimacy and integrity as part of the 3 I's. Let's go over intimacy and integrity briefly, and then we're going to get on to, for those of you who can't wait, what are 10 things that might make you happy right now? We're not going to leave you hanging, and in the last part of the program we're going to offer that to you, but let's talk about intimacy and integrity and the role they play in this process of your course.
Well, let's review, which I attempt to do in the book, in terms of teaching points for each chapter, and then an appendix that puts all the different lessons kind of in a review. And so happiness I see as a very ambiguous concept. Integrity, intimacy, and integration I see as things we can begin to define and how to get there. And I see them as a braid. That is, you have to have all 3 in order to make any one work. Although in the book I cover putting the parts of the self together, integration first, we really don't live well alone. We need intimacy with an institution, with a pet, with another person, with a family, with a ideal, with a creative product, something, with a spiritual resource, perhaps. So
some connection, some relationship.
And so to have that relationship as an intimate one, we always encounter a conflict. We don't really educate our children enough about this conflict. We ritualize them to subdue it, but there's a conflict between what we want right now. I want a lollipop right now, Mommy, in the supermarket. Not now, honey. So there's a conflict between what we want and what our intimate other thinks we ought to have or should have in some kind of contextual
beautiful, doesn't it, when he says it? But it's like everybody out there who's in a relationship is laughing their heads off, going, "Yeah, duh, right?" No,
Yeah.
you know, like, wow. And how do we bridge that? You
Yeah.
talk about it in the book.
Yeah. So, in dealing with this conflict and how to preserve an intimacy in spite of the frustrations over who's going to take out the garbage and who put dirt in this, didn't clean it up, and that kind of thing. The principles that keep people together are values, shared values, and that's where integrity comes
Yes,
from.
it's not chemistry. I told you. I've been on the campaign that chemistry is not what's going to hold your relationship together. When later in the program, I want to talk to Dr. Horowitz about his relationship with Beloved and some of the events that occurred between them. But continue on. This is really wonderful.
Yeah. So, if you then develop integrity by sorting out your values, you then are capable of having a continuous intimacy because you're trustworthy. And you also get love because people respect you for your integrity.
Told you. I told you. We're going to be back in just a minute, right after the break, talking more about what it takes to be happy. All these, it's like, I feel like Beaver Cleaver is back. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's the basics. Am I right, Doctor?
You're right.
I mean, the basics, people. Embrace the basics. We're going to be right back after this break. Don't touch that dial because we're going to tell you 10 things that are very likely to help make you happy. I'm Maryanne. Come right back in just a minute. I love it. Who gets excited about psychiatry? I do. Who can make it juicy? We can. Dr. Horowitz and I. I'll tell you, it needs to happen. We need to get juiced up about self-inquiry and integrity. You know what I'm talking about? It's juicy. Because if we don't, yeah, here's the deal, Jay. It's like, you know this guy, I swear to God, it's the best story I've ever heard related to this. This guy's a pilot, a friend of mine, but he was an alcoholic. So one day he gets in his plane, and he's trying to take off. And he can't figure out why the plane's all... He was still tethered to the stake. Okay, he was so drunk. And obviously back in the 70s, you know, the FAA or whoever, Federal Aviation Administration, anyway, this story would never happen today, but, right? That's what it's like when we don't know who we are. It's like being tethered to unconsciousness, and you never get to fly. You never get off the ground because you haven't developed your values, your what's important, who am I, what do I want, and, you know, it's like you just stay in this unconscious cesspool. Do you hear me? I'm on a campaign.
Is she telling
I'm going to march. I'm marching for happiness. My green tea kicked in. I have to pull an angel card. Dr. Horowitz, do you want to pull one?
Just
I've
pull the
got
card.
balance. Oh, I hate that one. Clarity. Yes. His is better than mine. Balance. Who wants balance? I'm kidding. It is sort of boring though. I wanted the abundance one. No, I'm going to take delight. I'm taking it.
Okay.
I
there you
can
go.
have that too. I can have a delightful balance. Right? Why not?
Why not?
See? I have permission. Today is all about I'm getting lots of permission from Dr. Horowitz.